What if Naruto is from a God Clan Part 2? Let's go. Naruto hated the village, but he hated himself as well. He thought that he was the reason that everyone hated him, and that it was his fault. Kurama tried to make him understand that it wasn't, but Naruto would not listen, and started hating on himself, just like the villagers had many years before, and continued many years after. Time passed on and on, as the world seemed to get more depressing for Naruto every day, and he started hating his birthday ever since he was kicked out of his home. He somehow managed to survive until he's now 8 years old. He became much more knowledgeable, not just about emotions, hatred, but also he became more knowledgeable about the world, about historical events, facts. He became very smart. The reason he was able to do this is, of course, with Kurama's help, who was willing to do anything for Naruto at this point. And Kurama even helped Naruto, gave him some of his chakra with physical enhancing abilities that allowed Naruto to actually enter and leave the library of Konoha extremely quickly, allowing him to take some books with him to read, as Naruto would never be allowed to go in, or especially not stay inside the Leaf Village library, and therefore he would never be able to read or check out any books. This was the only way. But over the months and years, Naruto noticed that his skin color seemed to change. At first, his arms. He thought that it might be just a little bit because of all the bruising that had happened over the years. Maybe his skin, maybe his own body was tired of Naruto. But that was not the case, as it started to spread throughout his body, and he became paler, with his hair turning paler every day, into a silvery kind of color, which almost resembled that of the Hatake's. And Naruto's body seemed to mature, much more different than the people his age should. He had a much muscular physique than people his age usually would be. Now, this is due a little bit due to the fact that Naruto did a little bit of training. Naruto knew that he needed to protect himself, and Kurama knew this too, which is why Kurama actually offered Naruto to be taught a few things, as throughout Naruto's reading, he has found more and more interest in shinobi, the arts of a shinobi, and the skill set that comes with it. And just out of fun, even tried to use some jutsu, though of course failed miserably. But Kurama saw this not as a joke, but as an opportunity to train Naruto early and make him stronger than his peers, which would also allow him to defend himself in case the village ever tried to use force to remove Naruto for real, and perhaps even try to actually kill him. So Naruto started with some physical training for a few weeks, basic things that he could do at home, and even in his mindscape. He practiced push-ups, squats, jogged in his mindscape, and around his apartment, which was pretty small, but he was able to walk in circles, jump up and down, improve his grip strength, and so on, and even did quite a bit of meditation in real life and in his mindscape. Through this, he also learned that his mindscape didn't have to be such a dull place. He was able to manipulate it into becoming beautiful. The water seemed to disappear more and more as he became a relaxed person and a little bit happier every day. The walls became shinier, not so dull and dirty, but even they were starting to look happy. The smell of the sea started to disappear too, as it wasn't a pleasant smell. It was more of dirty water. But all of that turned into a happy atmosphere where Naruto was able to practice even him being happy. And with time, gaining Kurama's trust and Kurama gaining his trust, they were able to make a deal that Naruto would let Kurama free, going as far as deleting the entire prison-like area of his mindscape and turning it into a grass-filled landscape with a big apple tree and even a sun shining in the corner. Now, after these few weeks, Naruto started to train ninjutsu, or rather, started to learn the basics that Kurama was able to teach him, as well as Naruto started reading more and more books about how to actually become a shinobi, started learning about the world of shinobi, but also the exact details of their abilities and how to start learning them and master them, about chakra control, basic jutsu, kunai throwing, and so on. He learned many things, many useful things for the future, and was able to practice almost all of them with Kurama, going as far as even creating kunai in his mindscape. Well, rather, Kurama created them at first with his own chakra, forming it into something physical, and turning it hard like metal, by just concentrating and focusing it. But later, Naruto, when he learned how to use his chakra properly, was, even if it was kind of hard at first, was able to use his chakra, his own chakra, to form kunai, but also to use elements to actually create full-on normal kunai. Now, of course, he could just create these in his mindscape like he did and transformed the whole thing, but that'd be not really good for his training. He did it sometimes, but it'd just be better training to actually make them. So now Naruto is prepared for the academy, and hopefully is able to defend himself at least a little bit. Now before this, the villagers actually got weird feelings from Naruto. Naruto started to dodge more and more of the things that they threw at him, which surprised them, and sometimes Naruto even caught what they were throwing, and one time even threw something back. He first caught it and then threw it right at the person's face. It was an old man, a retired shinobi, but he swore by it that the story was true, which, if anything, made the people start to hate Naruto even more, as he, quote-unquote, tried to hurt an elderly man. And there were more rumors, this one not specifically about Naruto, but connected to him. It was said that library books started to disappear and start to reappear once more, as if they were borrowed by a ghost. Now, anything bad that couldn't be explained directly was linked to Naruto, as he was the embodiment of evil, and anything that happened inside Konoha that was bad was, for some reason, his fault. So, these books that were disappearing were definitely his fault. And they were, but the villagers didn't know that, but they still accused him of it, which made Naruto sad. Of course, he does know that he did this, and it was true that it was his fault, but it's kind of sad that they still ran for complaining about Naruto. So, he's finally ready to start the academy. Naruto goes on for his first day, is careful that nothing happens on the way there, and manages to get there safely. No one sees him, no one throws anything, no one even knows he's there. He opens the door to the classroom as people gasp. Boys and girls alike gasp at the pale-skinned Naruto, and the teacher, Iruka, who was already standing there, had a moment of silence, not knowing what to do, but then had a terrified look, a disgusted look, that this creature was even inside his classroom. He didn't say anything, or even did anything. He just turned back to his classroom, as if Naruto was never even there. Then Naruto slowly and quietly closed the door once more, but staying inside the classroom, and then sat down in an empty row. Iruka had already started to explain to the classroom what they were going to do today, as well as in the future. Not to Naruto, though. And had said that he was happy to be their teacher, once more having a slightly disgusted look when looking over to Naruto. But in the end, he said that he hopes that they can all get along nicely. Of course, he was referring to the next 4 years that they were going to be stuck in this academy, but he just said it a little bit nicer than what some students were thinking. So they started to do some tests to see how strong the students were, as well as just see what they could improve, but also what they already knew. This was a class of a lot of heirs to clans and clan heads, so it would be important to see what they could already do and what they would have to do in the future. Now, about half of the class had known Kekkei Genkai from their clans or from their families. These were quite important children, important students. They did this by doing 3 different tests which they would compare every few months, so they could track their progress. This consists of a physical test, which is just sparring against somebody. At the beginning, this was just against some classmates, but later on, they might do it against a little more experienced people, such as teachers going easy or something like that. They weren't quite sure yet. Of course, it has to be done something about knowledge, which would likely be a written exam, though they weren't going to do it yet, as the students haven't been in the academy at all yet, so they weren't expected to know anything. So this test is only going to appear later on. Then another would just be throwing kunai and shuriken. Pretty easy, pretty simple test. Out of 10, later on, probably harder targets, and so on. Naruto was very good at all of these. Well, they only had 2 tests for now, but they focused more on the sparring one. But the kunai one was first, so he was very good. He was able to warm up with the kunais and then actually get serious in the sparring matches if he needs to. He didn't want to show off, or rather, make people think that he's actually good at something, because that'll kind of destroy his whole image, if he has any. So he gets a 3 out of 10, which is actually much better than most of the class. Just Sasuke has 6 at this point because he's very, very skilled, and was of course taught by his older brother and prodigy Itachi, who was taught by the legendary Shisui Uchiha, though both of them were very powerful and mega prodigies for their age. So anyways, Naruto is now about 5th in the ranking for the kunai throwing, and now it's time for the sparring sessions. Here, they're gonna draw lots and fight one another, or rather, spar with a classmate. Naruto is pretty lucky and gets Kiba as his opponent. Kiba, of course, brags that he's going to kill the demon and save the village, which is going to make him Hokage. Completely unrealistic, but he somehow believes in himself. And whilst he can't quite understand it, Naruto thinks that his dog is encouraging this kind of behavior. Gonna have to teach you a lesson. Naruto got into a stance, but it was a weird one. He got on all 4s, as it was a stance that he learned from Kurama. And Kurama is a fox, so naturally, Naruto acted as if he was an actual animal. But it worked. Kiba and Kiba's clan was focused on dogs, so they knew quite a lot about animals. And Kiba was scared at this position of Naruto's. It was intimidating. So already, Naruto had won the mental game. The psychological fight was already over. But then the physical one began, as the proctor, which was Iruka, began the match, and Naruto jumped across the battlefield at Kiba and pinned him to the ground, the dog not being able to do anything as he's still very young. Winner Naruto. As Iruka didn't want to do anything for Naruto, and not even let him get the win. He wasn't even thinking of letting the fight go on, or letting Kiba have the win. He is weak, but better than Naruto. He's a demon. But then again, technically speaking, he did win. So Iruka, just this once, showed some level of kindness. Well, to Naruto, that is. To others, he was rather kind. He was a kind soul. Just not to a demon. But that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Peace!